The She-Hulk show might be the last straw for some MCU fans. Now, you and I are kind of already here. I don't watch everything in the MCU anymore. After getting through Loki, that was kind of my final straw, but I haven't seen Doctor Strange yet. I haven't seen Thor Love and Thunder because they don't sound like they're worth my time or money.
Jane?
No, I haven't seen Thor Love and Thunder either. I pretty much checked out. I think Spider-Man No Way Home was probably the last high point we're going to get. I haven't had any interest in a lot of the Phase 4 stuff because it's not interconnected, so it's not must-see for me.
That is exactly what the writer of this article has to say. They say, up until this point, I've been worried that if I skipped a piece of MCU content, be that a movie or TV show, I would fail to understand some future Marvel project, and perhaps that will prove to be the case. Maybe something from She-Hulk will be the key to defeating Kang in the next Avengers movie, but I realized that watching a TV show purely because of FOMO is a waste of my own time, and it isn't sustainable in the long run. And I think Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios, Victoria Alonso, have missed the mark, not keeping everything interconnected and giving people a reason to skip a lot of this stuff.
I think that they had a plan like going in, and I think once they got to Phase 4 and they lost like the Russo brothers and things like that, I don't think that a lot of creativity necessarily was coming from Kevin Feige. I think he was more project managing everything. You know, he's too busy to really be involved in the minutia, and it seems like Victoria Alonso has taken over a lot of that, and so far it just doesn't seem like it's panned out.
Yeah, it's a lot of the creators. We don't have a lot of good creators associated with the MCU. It feels like they're hiring people to write and direct and produce these shows based on their surface traits and what sexuality they are and whatnot. And so we're getting a lot of really bad shows that aren't about superheroes. They're just about everything else.
It's interesting. The hiring for She-Hulk, you've got a superhero comedy and you've got a legal drama all wrapped up in one. And the writers have admitted they didn't read superhero comics. They didn't know how to write a law show, so they kind of scrapped that. There was supposed to be a continuing thread of the trial of the Abomination in the original draft of it, and then they were like, well, we don't really know how to write legal dramas. But then Marvel needs to hire somebody who does. You know, I don't understand why you're casting writers instead of hiring real writers.
This is another point that the author made. The glut of Disney Plus shows rapidly wore me down to the point where I only finished the likes of Hawkeye and Moon Knight out of a sense of obligation to stay in the loop rather than because I genuinely wanted to see those series concluded. Then next came up Miss Marvel, and to be honest, I found the first 2 episodes pretty refreshing. Unfortunately, the shine started to wear off in subsequent episodes, and as of the time of this writing, I've still got 2 episodes left of the series. They just haven't delivered really on any of their Disney Plus stuff. I haven't walked away from any of them going, oh my goodness, this felt like the MCU, except for the very first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Felt like it belonged in the MCU, but most of the other stuff, it's just been so forgettable, and it feels like they missed the mark every single time.
Yeah, you and I have reviewed a few of them. We reviewed Loki, we reviewed Hawkeye, we reviewed Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think you and I both ended up really disliking Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and then I think that we were just like, yeah, Loki and Hawkeye were okay. You know, we had some major problems with the way that Loki kind of breaks the universe. And that's the problem, is they've got a lot of things going on breaking the universe. You know, Thor Love and Thunder, it's about a magic wish. You know, if Gore can just get to eternity, he can get this magic wish. And anytime you don't have any other MacGuffin than a wish or, you know, the granting of wishes, your story's based on nothing.
Oh, you flipped too hard, damn it!
It almost felt like the creators behind that, like, just kind of had a disdain for the first 3 phases of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, at one point, the guy opens the drawer and there's all these Infinity Stones. Like, ha ha ha, everyone tries to take over the world with Infinity Stones, but we would have stopped it anyway. It's like, I just invested like 22 movies into that story and why it was a big deal. And for your little, like, one-off little joke about how it was all meaningless, kind of gives a lot of people, you know, pause. Why should I invest in this if they're just going to make fun of me later?
Some of the guys use them as paperweights.
They've done what the comics have done largely, which is they have started to make fun of the conventions of these superhero universes, but it's like people are invested in these. This is why you've had readers for decades, is because people are invested in these stories and these characters. And when you take a character and you go, haha, isn't it funny, aren't they a joke? You know, like they've done to Hawkeye, like they've done to Taskmaster, like they've even done with Doctor Doom. You know, and the Squirrel Girl ruined a whole slew of characters that way.
Yeah, and it sounds like She-Hulk has actually gotten it worse. This is what the author said next. In steps She-Hulk, the latest MCU show. It is currently 2/3 of the way through a 9-episode run. I hate to sound like a broken record here, but after an initially promising first episode, the next 2 chapters in Jennifer Walters' story left me pretty underwhelmed. The fourth wall breaking humor felt uninspired, and Walter's ability to turn into a big green rage monster so far appears almost unnecessary to the story. That's a pretty big problem if you're going in for a Hulk story. You know, you want to learn about She-Hulk, who is definitely different than Bruce Banner, but does share some traits to it. And the fact that she turns into this big green hulking monster is the least interesting thing about the character, or the least important thing about the character.
Yeah, I don't understand the direction that they've gone with this show at all. I think that it's largely inexperience on the in the hands of the people that they've hired. I just don't think that they were ready for this responsibility, and certainly not well versed enough or care enough about the MCU to kind of like really connect it and make it feel important.
I think this might be the downfall of the MCU on Disney Plus, because they are giving people the ultimate jumping off point. They're giving them a reason to not care about the MCU, and it feels like people are really starting to take them up on that offer.
All the stuff coming out on Disney Plus, all the TV shows, I think that you could be diluting the product. You could actually really be creating superhero fatigue, but I don't think that it would be happening if the shows were top notch. If the shows were blowing us away, I think we'd all still be invested.
Yeah, it definitely feels like Kevin Feige pulled a Kathleen Kennedy and really snatched defeat from the jaws of victory here. The Andor show is actually pulling in less people than She-Hulk. You would imagine Star Wars would be a boon for Disney Plus, but they diluted the brand and they've given people a reason not to believe in Star Wars anymore. Andor is based on a character I don't think people really have an emotional attachment to, and everything after that movie, other than The Mandalorian, has pretty much been despised, and shockingly, it's not working. And now we're seeing the same thing happen with the MCU, which used to be the biggest money-making entertainment venture in the world, and now it just doesn't draw like it used to.
No, it goes to show you how you can damage a brand by releasing an inferior product. Even something that before was as bulletproof as Star Wars. The prequels came out and people had complaints about them, and a lot of people didn't like them, but it didn't damage the Star Wars brand. The Star Wars brand kept going. We got the Clone Wars, we got all kinds of others, we got some kick-ass video games, so the brand was strong. We had the expanded universe, which was telling good stories that people liked. But once you have a couple of bad movies, you make some bad creative decisions, you do some bad TV shows, people don't look at the brand the same way, and they're not invested. Rogue One, even amongst people who hate Disney Star Wars, was viewed positively. Most people liked Rogue One that hated The Last Jedi, hated Rise of Skywalker, hated some of the shows. And now you've got a show based on one of the characters from Rogue One. And granted, yes, we know what happens to him, but I would think that, I thought Diego Luna was a good actor. I think he's a good actor. I think that the character was interesting in Rogue One. I would have been invested in that show at one time. When they first announced it, I was like, cool, I can't wait to see that. Now that it's out, I haven't watched it. After Obi-Wan, I don't think that I want to.
This is the last point the author of the article really makes. I don't feel the compulsion to carry on watching She-Hulk the same way I do with a show like House of the Dragon. The latter has me almost physically itching for each new installment, but it's been very rare for an MCU show to give me that same feeling, and unfortunately, She-Hulk definitely hasn't. If my overriding reaction to a TV show is basically a shrug, then it's probably a good sign to go and watch something else I'm interested in. There's stuff out there that people are itching to watch, but the MCU isn't delivering it anymore.
No, it's really kind of sad to see how the mighty have fallen. And, the slate of things that they're announcing, they just announced, I think, that Armor Wars is going to be a movie instead of a TV show. I don't care. I don't care about Armor Wars without Tony Stark. I don't want to see Don Cheadle in the lead as War Machine. They haven't done enough to make him interesting. You have to keep me invested by telling me good stories. And once you move away from that in comics, in movies, then I just, I check out. But you know what? If you guys want to read some stories, you want to see if I can put my money where my mouth is, go over to mercpublishing.com, order Miss Meow and Death Rage. There's books that Merc had done that they had crowdfunded. They brought me in to kind of redo the lunar versions. So, rewritten scripts and kind of recontextualized everything, and I'm trying to creatively direct this universe. So if you want to see what I'm doing, you can go check it out over there.
The current state of the MCU after She-Hulk is absolutely very sad, but what isn't sad is the reaction from the shill media trying to defend this show and why no one likes it. Want some more information? You need to check this one out. You don't see it here. There's also a link on the video description.